to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, pastor and region rep for Christian Veterinary Mission. And we are here as we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. And today we're on the road with Jordan and Curtis Clark. And so when you hear somebody talking about Curtis, there are two Curtises on this episode. That's a pretty rare thing there. So, we'll have to go Curtis, because I have two S's at the end of my name when we're talking about me. No, I'm just teasing. But we're so glad you guys are here with us. Thanks for joining us today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, we're excited.
And Jordan, you were Jordan Linehan when I first met you. By the way, go Dogs also.
Yes, go Dogs.
So yeah, we got the representing here for those that are seeing us on YouTube. Yeah, I want to, you guys are now, spoiler alert, you're a Clark. And so how did that come together? Tell me y'all's story a little bit.
Yeah, so it's crazy. God is super cool. So I went to the University of Georgia, College of Veterinary Medicine, and I went on the Navajo and Apache trip throughout vet school. So it's usually the second, third week in July. It's with UGA and Auburn and other vet schools.
Mary Peter, maybe was she a leader for that? Was that who was?
Oh, Mary. Yeah,
yep,
Mary
yep,
Peter.
yep.
Love her. But so we would go out I would go out on that trip every year. So 2017, 18, 19. So I met Curtis the first year. He hosted our team. He was a missionary out on the Apache Reservation. And it's kind of funny because he wasn't the director. He was literally just a volunteer that got thrown into hosting this team every year because the director was conveniently on vacation that every year and during that week. So he was just like a little volunteer from he moved out there in 2017 and from college and just volunteering as a missionary out there. And he hosted our vet team. And after hosting it one year, you just connected with us and we were friends and became Facebook friends. And so through the years, we just kind of knew each other. I was the president of our CVF group. And so I would kind of stay in contact with Apache Youth Ministries, which is the ministry that he was a part of. And
she didn't really stay in contact with the ministry as a whole, though. She would always just contact me. So
I'm starting to see a theme.
Yeah, we're Facebook friends, and yeah,
I would send prayer requests.
You would call me.
Yeah, I'd send prayer requests.
Yeah, but he would call other people too. So I was like, I don't know if this is a thing because he's calling Mary, he's calling Camille, so we just stayed in contact and. And then 2019 came around and I guess God, you had decided that year that you were going to ask.
Yeah, I told several people in about March that in about 3 months there'd be a team in and I was going to ask out one of the people on the team, Jordan Linehan at the time. And I was, there were several people that have told Jordan their perspective since then about how I had been talking about it ahead of time, but one of the guys that I was working with at AYM at the time, I thought was single at the time. So I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, there's this group coming. There's a lot of, people our age, but there's this one named Jordan. I'm going to ask her out this week. So, just to let you know, like,
in other words,
don't get attached or anything. So, unbeknownst to me, I guess she had been whispering to her friends there, like, I hope he does or whatever. And she got very frustrated at one point because I missed opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, but I didn't, in my mind.
Okay, it was Friday night and he had not asked me out. I was like, we're leaving tomorrow. Like, he's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I might be with Jordan on this one. I mean, you pre-announced that you were going to
hear me out here. My thought was, if I ask her out towards the beginning of the trip, I'm going to be spending 12 hours a day with this team for the whole week. And if she's like, I'm not really interested in that, that's going to make for a pretty awkward week.
Ooh, okay,
So
okay. I'm seeing the wisdom a little bit.
yeah,
Okay.
so I waited until about 7 hours before they went. They got in
To,
their
to
trucks and drove off.
minimize the wound, right? Just in
Yeah.
case, right? Yeah, yeah,
It was actually kind of funny. The couple weeks before that, we had talked on the phone for like an hour. And that's when I was like, this is kind of interesting. Like, this is a long time talking on the phone. And then I was going to Florida to do an externship at an equine hospital in Ocala. And his parents live like an hour away from Ocala. And so we were talking on the phone and I was telling him where I was going. And he was like, well, my parents live like an hour from there. If you want to, they just got 2 goats. If you want to go meet the goats. And I was like, I can go meet the goats. So I literally went to meet his parents before we even started dating. Like, and then he asked me out a couple weeks later. So God knew, what he was doing.
This
And
But
was coming
got my
together. Yeah.
sis, my mother called my sister right after she met Jordan and said, man, I just really wish Curtis would ask this girl out. I could see her being my daughter-in-law someday. So
yeah, so it's just kind of crazy. But yeah, I guess yeah, after that I said yes. But there's a whole funny story with that. But it was at Miss Lottie's house, which is where the team used to stay. But he asked me out right on her front porch, and the rest is history.
With
So
7 hours left to be like, okay, well, I guess I'll see
yeah.
you in a few months.
Yeah, he
well,
was like, well,
originally we were planning on going on our first date 6 months later, over her winter break, but
in Valdosta.
we ended up moving it forward to October. We went to a Georgia South Carolina game, and we won't discuss how that one went.
That was
Okay,
bad.
that's fair.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about that.
I've
but
been to one of those. Yeah, I've been to one of those. I was 2-2 in school too.
yeah, that was the year that we lost.
They were only 40-point favorites, so
Yeah, that's a tough one.
it
That's a
was a
tough one.
rough game. But
But he came to visit in Athens, so it was fun, but not really fun with the loss. But that's okay.
Well, well, look at it. Look at the various things that come out of short-term mission. Well, and spoiler alert, there are now 3 Clarks. So I think we saw that this relationship. Who is the third that's in the room behind you, probably?
Yeah, her name is Hannah Lynn. She is 14 months now.
walking everywhere.
She's walking and trying to talk. But yeah,
It's kind of already been a real life real impact, right? I think she was sort of on board. Yeah,
Real life real impact. She's been on 2 short-term CVM vet trips.
Yep.
And she is one of the most consistent AYM volunteers. Everyone was like, well, you can't bring your baby or whatever. But in reality, there was this whole group of high school girls that I would like kind of come up to and say, hey, now I'm Curtis, and like, how you doing and everything. And they were just, it was very short, one-worded answers. I'd ask them if they needed help with any homework or anything. Not much of a window there. And then all of a sudden I brought my daughter to work one day, and they started talking to me, and they're like, your daughter's so cute. And I was like, do you have any younger siblings at home? And they're telling me about their families all of a sudden. And so she really turned into this
icebreaker. Yeah,
great icebreaker for ministries. So it's
there you go.
cool.
Hey, I mean, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. Well, as you can see, we're going to be touching on short-term missions, but just seeing the relationships, all these kind of things. Jordan, tell us a little bit. I mean, Curtis, sorry, tell us a little bit about your story, because you coming to AYM, and what did that look like for you to become involved in tribal ministries?
Yeah. So I didn't really know all that much about tribes or reservation life or anything like that. When I was getting ready to go to college, I went to it's called Milligan College, to study Bible and youth ministry, and also pick up a history degree while I was there. And when I first arrived, there was actually the director of Apache Youth Ministries, which is the organization that I'm now the director of, happened to be visiting. So that would have been about 10 years ago, 11 years ago now. He was visiting and just kind of talked about some of the different challenges with Native ministry and how it might be different from overseas ministry and different things. But I found it very interesting, and I actually spent a little bit of time kind of digging into it more and reading about it while I was at school, and I wrote some papers, kind of just interested in all that. And I wasn't really planning on necessarily going out to a reservation or anything, but there was some pretty pretty big life changes that happened with about the summer before I graduated in January. So the summer before I graduated, I started. There was a lot of different life changes that happened, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna call Apache Youth Ministries, and so I still had that guy's number, and I called him, and I said, hey, I think I'm interested in doing an internship with AYM, and they usually don't start those till August, but they were okay with me coming in January. So in January of 2017, without ever seeing the reservation or anything, I showed up, and I was just planning on being there for 18 months. Because usually, it's a year-long internship, and they kind of start when the kids come in from school, and then they finish kind of with those kids. And I didn't want to kind of leave in the middle of like the seniors
Sure.
grad
Yeah.
in the middle of their year. So I was like, hey, I'm going to do 18 months, and pretty quickly I ended up teaching, and then so like within 6 months I was full-time teaching down there, and then doing ministry after I got off. And the 18 months has now turned into, I'm not going to do math, it's turned into 7.5 years at this point.
On-air
So
math
God
is
has really
dangerous.
different.
That's a good word. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Well, tell me I mean, what have you learned? What has it been like getting to know the tribe? I am sure there's been a thing or two, and this can go for both of you.
Yeah, so I've I've seen a lot of things over the 7.5 years I've been here. Unfortunately, as someone that has been in the classroom, I've seen just a huge amount of hopelessness.
Hmm.
And um, every year that I was teaching, I would have at least one, sometimes two students that decided that they didn't have any reason to be here on this earth anymore.
Hmm.
And so that was really hard. And that was a good. I think the thing that really helped me through that was knowing that the reason why I was here was to share the hope of Jesus with them. And
Hmm.
so while some other teachers might be struggling because they can't fathom why somebody would make that decision, it just would spur me on to realizing that I really needed um, those students to have the hope that they could find in Jesus. And so that was really crucial. But I've learned that the tribe the tribe is just really different. The reservation is just really different.
Mhm.
And there's some ways where it's like awesome, the differences, and then there's other ways where it's like this is really frustrating.
Mm.
But
What would you
um,
say is an example of each of those things?
yeah, so one of the ways that is just really beautiful is there is like this community aspect
Mm.
that I just never had really come to understand. And I think the first kind of time that I started to really notice that was a couple months in. There was a student of mine that was like, well, Mr. Clark, I'm really sad today. So what's going on? And they're like, well, my grandma died last night. And I said, I'm so sorry. And she said, yeah, it's my fourth grandparent to die in the last 3 months. And I was like, that sounds so hard. And I was like, so you don't have any other grandparents left, huh? And she said, no, I have like 18 more grandparents. And I
Wow.
was like, and like in the moment, I didn't want to like argue with the child, but I'm like,
Sure. Yeah, let me correct your math. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
you're a little confused. But it come to find out, and we've found out over time, it's just a very different family situation. So, in at least in Apache culture, I believe it's pretty similar in the Navajo culture. Any of your maternal or paternal like so your mom's mom, all of her siblings are your grandparents. Your
Hmm.
your mom's dad, all of his siblings are your grandparents. And it's like there's this tight knit that I could just never imagine. Because like,
Sure.
we would always just view like my great aunt as like, oh yeah, she's the great aunt. Like it wasn't like, but like a lot of our students are raised by a grandparent that is not their mom's mom.
Hmm.
Like it might be their mom's sister or whatever. And like they don't see them any different. Like they don't see
Different.
the mom's mom is not more important in like their relationship than the mom's mom's sister. And so there's just this really tight community that is beautiful in a lot of ways. And it also like it can be really difficult, especially in light of like what was going on with COVID, because you have 12, 15 people living in the same home.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like I remember looking at the numbers, and this just goes to show that even after 6 years there, you can really still say some really dumb things. And I was like, because we were talking about COVID and we were talking about how like it was just completely and utterly shut down. And I think that was one of the things that was difficult, because we went from having um, like 60 people come into our youth group every Wednesday
Mm.
to having like 5 people come to our youth group, because during a good chunk of COVID, like we were not allowed to meet. We weren't allowed to meet whatsoever.
Sure.
And so all as to say, I had mentioned very stupidly pretty recently that, well, if you really look at the numbers, when you compare the amount of people that got COVID and the amount of people that actually passed from it, it was very small numbers. Because I mean, you're talking they had like 10,000 positive cases and they had about 50 deaths. And when you really look at those numbers, that's a pretty good survival rate. Forgetting in the moment that every single student that was around when I said that comment lost a grandparent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because like if you go far enough out, like, everybody lost a grandparent.
Yeah.
Those 50 people are related to, at least one of them is related to is a grandparent in their mind. And so it's just
And they're really the elderly, they carry the Apache language, which is unfortunately kind of, hopefully not, but if it keeps
It's on the
going the way it
decline.
is, it's
It's
slowly
definitely
dying, because
Sure.
every generation it gets more diluted and
Losing something here and there.
yeah. So it's hard because they carry a lot of the culture that maybe isn't carried on in the
Yeah.
next generation.
Yeah.
So which is hard. But
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I'm seeing some beauty in the communal aspect, and but some challenges in the poverty and the things that keep that cycle sort of going. I mean, I think you were telling me something even about housing. There's like a wait list for housing years out, right? That just it makes it difficult for people to get kind of on their own 2 feet or have their own housing and things of that nature. Is that correct?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's also beautiful because people don't necessarily they depend on each other so much.
Mhm.
And we've seen a lot of strife within some families that we know, in the last year. Some really intense situations. We won't share the details. There's just some things involving like alcohol and domestic violence and just really terrible things. And sometimes you got to laugh or you'll cry in certain situations, but it's like, you know, the next month, those two people are sitting right next to each other at church. And it's like, man, like just they depend on each other so much. And
Yeah.
versus like families, elsewhere, like people will stop talking really quick over, situations that in my eyes, now that I see such darkness here, like the issues just they're not that big of a deal in this grand scheme of life, because here people just they depend on the family so much. In our east culture outside of the res, we have our own home, we have our own little family, we love our family, but a lot of times in our mind we don't depend on them as much as people here
Yeah,
do.
it's separate little, every house is its own contained unit,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting how families just depend on each other, and it's out of survival, but it's also out of like I love you. Like, you're my brother, you're my sister. Like no matter what happens, we're in it together. So yeah.
Well, Dr. Jordan, what have you seen in the aspect of working with animals on the tribe? And I know that we have both with the Apache and with the Navajo is a high percent of our short-term mission trips. We have a lot of teams every year, not only Georgia, but Mizzou, Auburn, a lot of different groups come down and tend to do short-term mission trips there, including yourself. What do you see, and why is that a place where we have concentrated a lot of our efforts?
Yeah, it's been awesome, like coming here and being on the long-term missions kind of side of things, seeing it from that point of view,
Yeah.
And it's been really cool being a part of the teams. And um, as a person that lives here full time, I can see why the mission teams are so vital. I mean, when they come, they serve, they spay and neuter and they love on these people, but they also love on us. And it really, it really inspires us to keep on doing what we're doing. So that's been a cool thing. But one thing I was thinking about is just the human animal bond. So I work at Blue Ridge Pet Clinic, which is up the hill. It's the kind of lingo here.
Sure.
Off the res, up the hill on the mountain. And we see a lot of native clients and animals. And that's been a really special thing for me because I can connect to those clients a little better. Like a lot of people know Curtis, usually their niece or nephew or daughter, were taught by him, or, they know him from school. And so just connecting and, just able to say, hey, yeah, I used to live down there. Like I used to live in White River. And they're like, oh, really? Like this vet used to live down there, and so just kind of getting on their level. And a lot of times, I mean, they will spend their last couple dollars to have their animal looked at, and just they don't have a lot, but what they have, they really do care for their animals. And they're really passionate about even getting them, if an animal's suffering, they, want to alleviate that. And so that's been really cool. I'm not able to be like full time on the res doing, medicine right now, but I'm able to see a lot of clients at the clinic. And also I go to like people's homes and houses like after church and on the res, like throughout the week, I'll as much as I can try to go treat animals at their homes.
You're doing that today?
Yeah. Yes. But the big thing is just seeing how much they care, even with the little they have to spend towards veterinary medicine. And it's kind of like it's a paradox because up here on up the hill, there's a lot of people with a lot of money, and there's people with second homes, and they come in on emergency and spend money to have their dog, have this little scrape looked at. It's like versus doing medicine down on the res, it's totally different. But just seeing God move in that, and so it's been really powerful. And a big thing for me kind of in ministry with is prayer.
Yeah.
A lot of my like ministry at work has been like with euthanasias and like praying with people during that time. And it's kind of been interesting because I feel like when I first moved here, like not a lot of like native clients would like opt for euthanasia. And now that's kind of changing. So that's been a lot of like, I've had several like native clients lately that I've got to pray with, during euthanasias and stuff. But it's just really, but it's kind of with the small animal team that comes out. It's been a huge blessing. And I think a big part of that has been like for me as a student, when I was a student, connecting with like students was a big thing through the trip. And a lot of times like students will like add you on Facebook, and that's kind of how they stay connected, with our team members through the year.
I've heard you can get a husband that way too, but I don't know. That's just a theory. It's just a rumor.
Yeah. But that's kind of how our team, a big part of the Apache team, has been connecting with the students. So the students coming and helping with the vet team, and then after the week is over, like connecting with them through social media. And even we've had instances where me as a student, and now even people have reached out, like our students have reached out to vet team members in crisis. Sometimes they won't reach out to us, but they'll reach out to other people
on a CVM
in time of crisis. And so that's been a big and then they'll let us know and we'll reach out. But it's kind of interesting how God uses the short-term trips in different ways. But yeah.
Well, let me follow up on one. There's more meat on this bone, so we'll get into some of this on our next episode. But let me do one quick follow-up on something you said, Jordan, because we get this question a lot, particularly from vet students, because that's what I work with, right? You mentioned euthanasia, and that is some of where you have a chance to pray. That's some of where you have a chance to, connect your faith to that moment. But there are people that ask about that a lot. What does that look like? How can I do that? Walk us through what that looks like for you in those moments as you found that to be an impactful opportunity.
Yeah. So just, I come in the room and I usually kind of get down to their level, and ask like how long they've had the pet, and just kind of walk them through kind of what the physical process is going to look like with the euthanasia, what to expect. And then before I give, that the euthanasia drug, I ask if I can pray, and I would say I preface it with, I always ask this, it's okay if not, but can I pray over, Bella, and pray over you during this time. And 99% of the time, I've honestly, I think one time they hesitated and I was like, that's okay. And, I just kind of went on.
Framed it in a way that they could
one time out of like
but that's
4 years, and no one else has said no. And so they're like, oh yeah. And so, I just pray, Lord, thank you for Bella, and God, thank you for just the memories and even the joy that Bella's brought to this family's life, Lord. And I just pray peace for them during this time, God, that you would just show them you, Lord, in this time, God, that you would be with them, Lord, and be with Bella as she passes on, Lord. And we love you, Jesus, and we just thank you for this, wonderful pet that you've given them, and the wonderful gift that you've given them in Bella. And God, that you would just give them peace. And I usually lay my hand on the pet, and we actually, usually people cry and are emotional and they're really thankful. And I usually say in Jesus' name, at the end. And so it's been really powerful. And I just, even in like stressful days, like I try to still do it. Like Monday, I had a very frustrating day, and I still, like, I had a couple euthanasias and I was like, Lord, I'm still going to do this. Like, even though I'm frustrated and I just want to get in and out. And that's just like your flesh, when you're busy. But like God was just like, you need to sit and just do this, and even when I've opted not to, and God's like convicted me in the room, and it's like, oh, I didn't do it, and because it just feels empty when I don't bring like the Lord into it, the Holy Spirit. I mean, he's there, but sometimes we have to invite that in, and we actually had an opportunity to do that on the small animal, the CVM trip this year in July. We did a euthanasia for a pit bull mix that had a tumor, and we did it out in the truck outside the AYM, and we got to pray with him. And it was, he wasn't expecting euthanasia to be the end result of that visit with us. And you could tell, but we got to pray, and had some students pray with us. So, but yeah, so that's a big, big part of what we do, bringing the Lord into the everyday,
Do do you think it's had more an impact on more than just the clients?
Oh yeah. The staff, obviously that instance was on the trip, but like in my clinic,
Oh,
the
sure.
staff really, I think they expect me to do it, and they bow their head, and I have a lot of staff members that are different faiths and even atheist, and so I think it's really vital for me to keep doing that because they know to expect that, and I think if we stop doing that, then they're like, they know that that's going to come. And yeah, so it's pretty cool. So God has, and Dr. Jordan Murray was the doctor that told me that she does that. That was like my first year out. She was a relief doctor, and she was actually in CVM at Washington. And she told me she did that every euthanasia. And I was like, and after that, I started doing it. So yeah.
Huge fan, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Easily
Yeah.
top 5 most likable people on the planet,
Yes.
possibly,
Yes.
right? Yeah. So I mean, but you're up there too, Jordan. Like you got these
Yeah.
Jordans that are just up
Oh,
there.
Jordan Murray. That's cool.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. We did
Yeah.
being out here at Wazoo. Yeah, she
Yeah.
spoke her life out here for us last year with her little.
Yeah.
She's
So
fantastic.
she's,
So,
I love her.
yeah,
I'm,
big win. Big win.
yes.
Well, that's such a great story and such a good example. And there's more to follow up that we'll get to, but just neat to be interviewing a vet and a pastor, faith and vet med right here, just talking about how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.